Okay, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I got into fashion by default. I am not, I'm not a mainstream hardcore Bollywood or film person because fashion is my primary business. And apart from that, I've got into hospitality. People come to India, they want to celebrate India, and Indians have stopped celebrating India, which is one of the reasons I took up films, because I realized that through that I could probably influence popular society to get back into being Indian. My first film was a film that I did called Black, which was done by one of India's most visual directors. He's kind of one of the best that we have. His craft is very superior, called Sabyasachi. And I have to tell you, like, before I start, that though fashion is is my priority, I do films for two reasons. I do firstly because for me it's a selfish indulgence. It helps me escape from the world of fashion. Secondly, I think my work has a lot of influence in the country. So when I do a film, I know that, and a lot of directors like working with me because they know that I have a huge following of people who would like to come and see the clothes in front of it. So, sorry, I don't need to sound arrogant, but that is a he loves things which are larger than life. So here he was trying to attempt a film which was very, very serious. It was a film which did not have pink and tack and polyester and sequins. It was a film that had no songs. It was a film that had no villain. It had a film that had no item number. It was a film that had no sex, apart from one kiss. Yes. So it was, it had everything that it didn't have anything that sells in India. It is very, very important to make sure that there's a continuity and there's no suspension of belief. If you realize that her hat and her sweater is the same, only the shirt has changed. So somewhere down the line, you can't give a character new clothes every day because then what happens? The believability factor of the film dies. Sometimes we have to realize that as a costume designer, we need to be very, very careful because one wrong move, let's say a painted nail, can cost the actress or the actor an Oscar. So what we did in this case is we made sure that her nails were clipped because when you do not have vision, your parents will make sure that your nails are clipped so that you don't scratch yourself. This is the most iconic scene. If you look at her, we've given her what we thought would be an overdose of jewelry. So she has a brooch, she has earrings, and she has the cross. And she has a red printed silk dress. This was my first film. It also got me many prestigious awards, including the National Award, which is India's equivalent to the Oscars. And but I think the biggest award was the fact that people started recognizing costumes as a very important part of filmmaking in India. Thank you. This is the last film that I've done. In fact, this is my second film with this director. And the moment I leave Melbourne, I'll go to sign my new contract with him for the third film that I'm going to do with him. You know why I like working with Sanjay is probably because he's the only director who indulges you as a costume designer. Now, Guzaarish is a film which deals with a very successful, magician. Thank you. Who basically had an accident and he's paralyzed neck down and he can't do much. He was a very successful man. So what happens is that, his mind dies within, but his body is still surviving. And he's being looked after by a day nurse. And it is his relationship with his nurse and how he wants the nurse as a final act of love to kill him so that he can escape. And when I did Aishwarya's clothes for Guzaarish, it was very, 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 very controversial because the nurse came in all finally. She wore red lipstick, and everybody in India says, why is this woman wearing red lipstick? Why is so much of cleavage showing? Why is she wearing these schizophrenic clothes that almost borderline madness? I was very influenced by a director that I really admire, Pedro Almodovar. And I'd seen a film called Women on the Verge of Nervous Breakdown. And that was the backstory that went on in my head when I was doing Guzaarish. And the plot fascinated me. And Sanjay said that, listen, Sabyasachi, it can't be a dark film, it's a very dark thought already. we have to make this film. What was he gave me a brief. I'll tell you. He said the film needs to look like a tango club. Now it's a film that you're talking about terminal disease. You're talking about a man who's going to die and his nurse, and you want it to look like a tango club. So this is as odd as his references are. A director's vision is to make a film come true, but he's not sometimes technically qualified to understand what clothing can do to the film. So that is where you need to be his support system, and you need to help him visualize. So with Guzaarish, when I was talking to him, I found out a very interesting thing about Aishwarya. She's a woman who has a very abusive husband. She is in an abusive relationship. Her husband beats her up a lot. So as an escape, she comes to work with this man. And that's where I started creating a backstory for the film as well. So I went and told Aishwarya that, Aishwarya, you need to be like this, almost like this very French school teacher, very stern. You should never smile in the film. You should say very little. Your posture should be very erect. You should wear these very uncomfortable shoes. And what happens is, when women go through depression, men or women go through depression, we have two tendencies. We either have a tendency of overeating or undereating, or we have a tendency of overdressing or underdressing. Where you would realize that, today when I see a woman dressed head to toe in, let's say, Chanel or Prada or Gucci, and I know that there's something wrong with her life. I know that she's trying to compensate by making her handbag, by telling her handbag that you're my best friend. So I belong to fashion, where I realized that what fashion does, it makes a global business out of feeding on people's insecurities. So what I decided, what Aishwarya would be one of them, that her clothes are her defense mechanism, they are her weapon. So 10 people sitting on the road would look at that woman and say, who's this mad woman who goes to that house every day and comes out every day and wearing such weird clothes? Who is she? But some poet or some writer sitting on the roadside would say, she's going through difficult times. And it was very subtle. India hadn't awakened to that kind of sensibility in clothing. I think I got -3 stars out of 5 stars. It got completely panned, but in the West, this film got very deeply acknowledged for its sensibilities. Over to Guzaarish. Two people came into my head when I was doing this film. I have two big muses. One of my biggest muse is a Mexican painter called Frida Kahlo. I really love Frida's sensibilities. And also the other thing that comes into, sometimes I have to think of the woman. So I thought of Frida Kahlo, I thought of Paloma Picasso. Women with a very strong, loud, subversive sensibility. We employ directly over 1,100 people in the company, and we give, we have employed a lot of villages in India, so we give employment to over 75,000 people all across the country. So it's
you mentioned working with block printers in Jaipur, but right. I'd be interested to hear where else you work with artisans in India, and if you ever work with natural dyes.
Half of the film has been done in natural dyes, because most of the indigos are actually indigos that we sourced out from Visakhapatnam. And I work with a gamut of people. Earlier my mission was to use textiles and products from West Bengal, where I grew up. But then I had a little bit of money, and I started traveling all over India, and I realized that why not India? And now I've traveled all over the world. Now I want to adopt a few villages in Africa also, because I think that when the world goes towards homogenized luxury, it's art and craft that is going to become the real luxury for people who are erudite, well-traveled. And in India, I work with almost every single art and craft belt. In fact, the next film that we are doing, we are going to extensively source from Gujarat, like Saurashtra, Kutch, and also from Rajasthan.
India is full of fashion designers these days. So you obviously stand out among the crowd. So what makes you original, fresh, and keep your work innovative?
I'll tell you something. There's a journalist right now who called me my hotel room to ask me the same question. And I'll give you the same answer. He said that I said that when everybody goes mental, if you stay simple, that is what keeps the freshness alive. I think what I do is I don't over-intellectualize fashion. I like to keep it easy for people to understand. You know, like when I mean, with due respect to all brands, I don't think a woman's body needs a 24-inch shoulder. I don't think that you need extra hips on your waist. So when I look at designers trying to make outlandish clothing, I'm like, doesn't it defeat the entire purpose of clothing? Because clothing is meant to not just protect but also beautify. So I like to keep my clothing very simple. So while everybody else is trying too hard, maybe I'm too lazy and that's the secret of my success.